Reality tore like old cloth, and the night itself seemed to bleed. A gaping wound opened above the ash-choked spires of a hive world, its edges dripping with unlight. Through this breach a man descended, wrapped not in flame but in liquid dusk. Before we descend into the chaos of this tale, make sure to subscribe to the channel for more legends and dark histories from the Warhammer 40k universe. Jackie Estacado had felt the pull of the darkness every day since his 21st year, but never had it torn him from his own world and hurled him through a void of screeching whispers and alien constellations. He hurtled through the gap, with limbs clenched and mind ringing, dark tendrils curling around him like serpents seeking purchase. Below waited a city of impossible scale, stacked layers of habitation blocks and manufactoria under a sky clogged with pollution. When he struck a ruined plaza, cracked stone and rusted steel buckled under his armored form, shockwaves rippling through soot and old blood. His heart hammered against his ribs. The darkness pulsed along his spine with hungry excitement, as if tasting the warp-tainted air of this new domain. Around him, rag-clad figures reeled from the impact, faces gaunt and eyes shining with fanatic fervor. They chanted names unfamiliar to Jackie's ears, names that dripped with blood and madness. He had seen cults before in the alleys of New York, but none had worshipped cosmic entities that answered with physical tears in reality. The words spilled from their lips without quotes, merging with the metallic groan of the hive. With calm certainty, Jackie rose amid the crater, the heavy coat he wore in his world replaced by armor formed from his own shadow. The darkness had conjured it instinctively during his descent, plating his body in a skin of glossy black that drank the dim light. He reached out, and serpentine limbs sprang from the void around him, coiling and snapping like living whips. The cultists paused, awe battling terror. Under his breath, the words came steady and low, promising these zealots would not lay hands on him. Then he moved, and the night moved with him. Blades of darkness slashed through ragged flesh. Guttering lumen globes shattered as tendrils wrapped around them, plunging the plaza into near black. In this gloom, Jackie was king, his vision sharpened, his heart slowing to a hunter's rhythm. Each cultist fell to claws that formed and reformed at his command. They were not demons of the warp, yet they bled and died like the men he had slain as a mobster. Still, something about their worship resonated with the ancient voice inside him. The darkness whispered of rivals, gods of blood and rage, and it salivated at the thought of devouring them. As the last cultist slumped, the torn sky above knit itself closed, sealing him in a world both familiar and utterly alien. Jackie felt the weight of distant, watchful eyes. The darkness exulted. The air crackled with sirens and vox-hailers as the hive reacted to this incursion. He had landed in the heart of someone else's war. The echoes of the chanting faded, replaced by the low hum of industrial machines and the distant roar of conflict. Jackie holstered a shadow-made pistol, his mind racing. He had survived his fall. Now he needed to understand where he had come to and why. The darkness in him coiled and purred, eager for the hunt ahead, and the scene handed its solemn tone into the next. The hive breathed like a giant diseased beast, each hab block a ribcage, each vent a lung expelling toxic fumes. Jackie moved through alleyways narrower than the New York alleys he once commanded. The stench of promethium and decay filled his lungs. Above, megastructures pierced the smog, studded with gargoyles and prayer speakers. Under the cloaking folds of his living armor, he considered the cosmic irony. A mafioso from Hell's Kitchen, now stalking through a city that made his old neighborhoods look quaint. The darkness murmured, amused by the parallel hierarchies of crime and faith. In the shadows between humming generators, he saw people huddled, their skins stretched taut by hunger. They whispered of uprising, of an inquisition descending, of sacrifices demanded by blood gods. The words reached his ears like the growl of a distant thunder. Without quotes to frame them, they folded seamlessly into his internal monologue, and he could not tell which came from the citizens and which from the darkness. Close third-person perspective anchored him. He felt every vibration in the ground, every tremor of fear in those he passed. The mob still lived inside him, the part of Jackie that understood power structures and how to exploit them. Here he sensed a different hierarchy, a divine bureaucracy enforced by gunmetal saints. He saw posters of a skeletal emperor with vacant eyes, admonishing obedience. He heard a preacher at a street corner blend prayer with threats, his cadence like a machine. The emotional arc began to curve as Jackie watched a pair of armed enforcers, arbiters, someone whispered, drag a woman from a queue and beat her with shock batons for speaking out of turn. The darkness recoiled at their uniforms, recognizing a different flavor of control. Jackie had no love for police, but this was brutality on another level. Under his breath, he asked the darkness if it wished to intervene. It answered with a surge of power. Shadow tendrils flowed from his hands, snaking through the throng unseen. They wrapped around the batons and jerked them away. The enforcers spun in confusion. Before they could raise an alarm, Jackie stepped forward with predatory grace. He slammed one into a wall, the armor under his coat absorbing the shock. The other raised a stub pistol. A darkling burst from Jackie's shoulder, its grotesque face grinning. The impish creature lunged, sinking needle teeth into the enforcer's throat. Blood sprayed, steaming on the cold steel floor. The crowd gasped and scattered. Jackie hissed a command, and the darkling scuttled back into his shadow. He had made a choice. He could not stand idly by while tyranny reigned. The tone remained solemn, mythic, immersive. He felt eyes on him again, not just the citizens, but something above. A servo skull, hovering on tiny anti-grav motors, turned its glassy optics toward him. Vox crackles echoed as whoever watched marked him as a variable. He retreated into deeper gloom, his thoughts racing. He had interfered in a system he did not understand. Yet he could not let his sense of justice, warped by both his mob past and the ancient entity within, be silenced. The darkness purred, pleased by the blood spilled. Jackie wiped crimson from his gauntlet, noting how similar human blood looked, regardless of universe. He slid into a maintenance corridor, the lights flickering overhead. Somewhere far away artillery boomed. The rhythm of the hive's machine heart continued unperturbed. Around him, whispers of rebellion and divine edict mingled like smoke. Jackie knew he would have to choose sides eventually. For now he moved deeper, tracking the threads of corruption that only the darkness could see. The section ended with his resolve hardening, handing the story's weight forward. In another part of this metal labyrinth, a man with a seal of unquestioned authority watched augur scans and holodisplays with narrowed eyes. Inquisitor Alaric Morda wore armor adorned with purity seals and the sigils of the Ordo Hereticus, each inch a testament to battles fought against the unclean. He had served the Imperium longer than Jackie had been alive. Yet this new anomaly, this figure wreathed in shadow, slaying cultists and defying arbitrators, unsettled him more than any chaos cult he had purged. Alaric studied grainy pict feeds captured by servo skulls. They showed the green-tinged darkness coiling around a man like a living cloak. It showed him dispatching cultists with weapons that formed from nothing. It showed him interfering with the Emperor's law enforcers. The Inquisitor's mind catalogued the possibilities: demon host, Xenos artifact, unsanctioned psyker. Each option required swift eradication. Beside him, a hooded acolyte recited casualty reports. Cult uprisings had flared across the lower levels. Warp activity spiked with alarming frequency. A larger ritual perhaps whispered behind each lesser shrine. Alaric turned to Magos Beryl, whose augmetic limbs interfaced directly with the strategium's cogitators. The tech priest's mechanical monotone could have been a monotone for all its emotion.
Unknown energy signatures, Inquisitor.
The being wields non-standard weaponry. No warp residue detected on its armor, yet the shadows it commands do not correspond to known technologies. The Inquisitor's jaw tightened. His duty was clear. He keyed his vox and sent orders to the local Arbites precinct to track and report all sightings of this entity. In the same breath, he requested a Deathwatch team from the orbiting strike cruiser. The Killmarines were specialists in eradicating anomalies that threatened the Imperium. They would either capture this creature for study or reduce it to ash. Alaric's gaze lingered on a paused frame of Jackie dispatching a demon. The way he moved was efficient, brutal, with none of the wild fervor of chaos. It reminded the Inquisitor of the old tales of silent assassins whispered by the Officio Assassinorum. He dismissed the thought. The Emperor demanded vigilance. Even the most useful weapon, if uncontrolled, could turn and bite. While he planned, he did not consider the entity's perspective. He did not wonder what it was like to be torn from one reality into another. He did not see the weight of two worlds on Jackie's shoulders. The narrative stayed with Jackie's close third person, but through the Inquisitor's gaze, the readers felt the weight of the Imperium's response brewing.
Orders crackled across Vox relays. Armored boots slammed in unison.
The gloom of the hive deepened. Jackie moved below, unaware of the storm about to break over him. Emotional tension tightened like the string of a bow drawn to its maximum extent. The darkness within Jackie sensed the scrutiny, a prickle like ants along the inside of his skull. It whispered of eyes beyond eyes. Jackie pushed the feeling aside. He had more immediate concerns, following the threads of corruption to its source. Inquisitor Morda looked up at a tapestry of the Emperor, enthroned in golden light. His lips moved in prayer, though his faith was as much steel as spirit. In this world, suspicion was salvation. With calm determination, he sent the kill order into the darkness. The weight shifted, handing the simmering unease forward to the next part. Jackie descended through levels of the hive where light was a rare commodity. Here in the underhive, kilometers below the spire's glittering apex, civilization degraded into a maze of pipes, rusted walkways, and chemical runoff. The darkness thrived in this environment, its whispers louder and more insistent. It remembered ancient tunnels beneath medieval castles, catacombs under European cities, and now factory guts of a planet-spanning machine. Each environment fed it in a different way. The voices he passed belonged to gangers and mutants. They spoke in hushed tones of demons ripping through walls, of warped tears opening like infected wounds, of champions of chaos carving shrines out of industrial waste. Jackie followed these rumors like breadcrumbs. The darkness unfurled tendrils to taste the lingering energies. In one forgotten chamber, he found corpses hanging from hooks, their blood drained into vats. Symbols he did not recognize, but the darkness did, were scrawled across the walls. He stepped closer and felt the oily caress of warp residue on his skin. Memories of past incursions flickered. Monstrous forms birthed from the emptiness between stars, eyes like galaxies, tongues like highways. Jackie clenched his fists.
Another world, another infestation.
He had not asked to be a hero, but he could not stomach the thought of this infection spreading unchecked. The darkness pulsed, excited by the prospect of consuming such potent corruption. On the other side of the chamber he heard skittering. A creature dropped from the ceiling. Its form was human in origin, but twisted by warp energies into something monstrous. Extra limbs, elongated jaws, and eyes that burned like coals. It hissed, a sound like tearing parchment. Jackie's reaction was swift. Shadow formed into twin pistols in his hands. He fired, not bullets, but blades of solidified night. They struck the creature and cut deep, but it kept coming, regenerated by whatever cursed energies fueled it. He dismissed the guns and summoned darklings. Two diminutive demons erupted from his shoulders. They were grotesque, their mouths filled with jagged teeth and their eyes gleaming with malevolence. They leapt onto the creature, clawing and biting with gleeful cruelty. The mutated thing thrashed. It lashed out with limbs too long to be functional and knocked one darkling aside. Jackie rolled under a swipe and extended a tendril that wrapped around the demon's head. The tendril squeezed.
Bone cracked.
The creature's skull imploded. It collapsed, its body dissolving into a goo that smoked on the floor. The darklings cackled and lapped at the viscous puddle before disappearing back into his shadow. Jackie surveyed the chamber. The blood vats, the symbols, the hanging bodies. It was a ritual site. The darkness hummed, recognizing the pattern. Someone was trying to thin the veil between this world and the realm of demons. Jackie had interrupted the process, but there would be more, likely connected in a network like veins. The small victory did not ease the tension coiled in his chest. He needed to find the heart of the corruption. He left the room, pausing only to collapse the entrance with a wave of shadow so no one could reuse it. The smell of rust and blood clung to him as he continued through the maze. In the distance, he heard a new sound, the steady tread of heavy boots, the disciplined cadence of soldiers who were not cultists. He felt the darkness stir with anticipation. The next encounter promised to be different. The emotional arc tightened, and the section's conclusion passed a grim baton to what lay ahead. The Space Marines of the Death Watch were giants of war, each almost 3 meters tall, clad in black ceramite armor, inlaid with the sigils of their chapters and the silver-left shoulder plate that marked them as members of this elite Xenos hunting brotherhood. Brother Captain Lucian led them through the underhive, his helm's optics piercing the darkness with ease. Their orders were clear: intercept, assess, and neutralize the shadow-shrouded anomaly reported by the Inquisitorial network. Jackie sensed them before he saw them. The darkness shivered, not in fear, but in thrill. These were warriors beyond any he had encountered. They moved with precision, their bolters ready, their power armor humming with suppressed energy. Jackie had fought mobsters with switchblades, gangsters with automatic rifles, and demons with claws longer than scimitars. But he had never faced superhumans genetically engineered for war. He pressed against a wall, his form merging with the gloom. Tendrils flattened along metal. The Marines entered the corridor, tactical formation perfect. The floor trembled under their weight. Lucian raised a fist, and the team halted. Brother Tech Marine Gaius scanned the area with auspex. Unknown life form detected, he transmitted.
Non-Imperial, no warp signature. Caution. Jackie watched them through a crack between pipes. He felt something akin to respect.
These men were soldiers in a war he had stumbled into. He remembered his own men, his crew, their loyalty bought through fear and camaraderie. These Marines were loyal not to a man, but to an idea etched into their bones. Under his breath, he hoped he could avoid killing them. The moment stretched. A drop of water fell somewhere, echoing like a gunshot. Suddenly the floor grating behind the Marines gave way. Warp-mutated vermin surged forth, squealing and snapping. The Death Watch reacted instantly. Bolters thudded, each round a miniature explosive that shredded corrupt flesh. Jackie saw his chance and moved. He darted from his hiding place, sprinting along the opposite wall. He hoped to slip past them while they were distracted. Brother Captain Lucian's enhanced reflexes caught the motion. He pivoted, bolter swinging toward Jackie, finger tightening on the trigger. Jackie raised his hands not to surrender but to conjure a wall of darkness. The bullet struck the living shadow and was swallowed. Lucian's visor flickered as his target vanished. The darkness whispered suggestions. It wanted blood. Jackie ignored the urge to attack outright. Instead, he called out, his voice low and steady, letting his words merge with the clang of combat. He told them he was not their enemy, that he hunted the same corruption they fought. There were no quotation marks, just internal monologue becoming external sound. Brother Chaplain Severus heard the voice, its tone neither pleading nor arrogant. It unsettled him. He activated his Crozius, ready to strike. The bolt of fire ceased as the vermin died. All Marines turned toward the shadow-wrapped figure standing at a junction ahead, visible now because Jackie allowed himself to be seen. The tension in the air thickened, intangible yet heavy. Brother Captain Lucian issued a directive, under his breath but amplified by his vox. Surrender for examination. Jackie shook his head, dark tendrils coiling in readiness. He was no one's test subject. The darkness hissed, eager. The Marines advanced. Jackie braced. The first salvo of mass-reactive shells tore into his shield of shadow. It held for a heartbeat, then splintered. Jackie dodged, moving with preternatural speed, sliding between columns and cables. He returned fire not with bullets, but with spikes of darkness aimed at their joints. The spikes glanced off Ceramite, leaving only scratches. Brother Sergeant Tycho reached him with a crackling power fist. Jackie ducked under the swing and slashed with a tendril, but the fist connected on its return arc, knocking Jackie through a wall. Pain flared. He tasted blood. He had not been hit so hard since the day he inherited the darkness. In that instant, the mobster resurfaced. He grinned feral. He loved a good fight. The darkness roared in his ears. He emerged through the dust, eyes burning with pale green light. The Marines formed a semicircle. They were disciplined. He was unpredictable. The corridor vibrated with the energy of impending violence. Each side measured the other. Each wondered if cooperation might serve a greater purpose. Yet orders were orders, and destiny rarely cared for nuance. The narrative pressed on, the battle unresolved, handing its tension forward. Deep within the hive's forgotten depths, a different power convened. A chamber once dedicated to refining promethium now held vats of blood and stacks of skulls. Lord Vakra, a former overseer turned champion of Khorne, stood with muscles corded and skin inscribed with runes. Brass armor grew from his flesh. His chain axe throbbed like a second heart. Around him, cultists in various states of mutation chanted praises to the blood god. Vakra had overseen the sacrifices personally. He bathed in the blood, hearing his god whisper promises of ascension. He trusted those whispers implicitly. Yet those whispers carried warning this day. Something hunted his followers, desecrating shrines, slaughtering his demon hosts.
Vakra snarled, baring filed teeth.
He slammed his fist into a nearby pillar, cracking metal. His sorcerer, Malice, cowled and covered in talismans, traced symbols in the air. The warp responded sluggishly, agitated by interference. Malice turned his gaze to his lord. "Another entity has entered our domain," he said, without quotes, his words thick with disdain. "Not of the Four, yet not of the false emperor either. It devours our rituals. It drinks the shadows." Vakra spat onto the floor. "Another pretender to Khorne's throne. Let it come. I will tear out its spine and offer it as tribute." Malice shook his head, beads clattering. "Do not underestimate it." Our scouts fell silent. Our minor demons were obliterated. The energy signatures are akin to the void between stars. It may be more than a mere mortal.
Vakra's anger blazed hotter.
His pride would not allow him to fear any opponent. He lifted his chain axe and roared, a sound that shook dust from rafters. The cultists echoed him, their voices merging into a wave of sound. The blood god answered with a surge of warp energy that cracked the air. Malice felt the pressure and smiled, seeing madness take root in the eyes of his followers.
He extended his senses, feeling for the intruder.
In that psychic space, he brushed against something old and hungry. It recoiled from his mind like a snake from a flame. Malice blinked, surprised. It was not chaos. It was something else entirely.
Vakra barked orders.
Guard the central ritual. Double the sacrifices.
Spill more blood.
He stalked among his men, slapping shoulders, promising glory. He promised his own ascension to Demon Prince upon completion of the ritual. He did not speak of his slight fear, of the unknown predator moving closer. He would drown that fear in bloodshed. The darkness flickered at the edges of his domain, invisible to him, but palpable to Malice. The sorcerer traced protective runes on his staff. He had glimpsed glimpses of creatures like this in forbidden tomes, ancient primordial forces that consumed light. He wondered if this was one of those. He wondered if this was a test by Khorne. The emotional tone here shifted to anticipation of conflict. The cult's frenzy contrasted with Jackie's stealth and the Imperium's cold logic.
Vakra's roar still reverberated through pipes and ducts, carried by air currents like a war drum.
In the chamber above, the blood vats bubbled and the ritual circle pulsed, connecting to others across the hive. Each thrum drew the veil thinner. Each moment brought the unknown hunter closer. The scene darkened, handing a feeling of impending collision into the next section. Back in the underhive corridor, the standoff with the Death Watch escalated. Jackie's mind raced, balancing the need for survival with the desire to avoid unnecessary killing. These superhuman warriors fought to protect humanity, even if their methods were brutal. He was not their enemy, but circumstances made them adversaries. Brother Captain Lucian signaled his squad. The Marines spread, forming a pincer. Brother Chaplain Severus advanced with his Crozius Arcanum, a mace crackling with blue lightning. Lucian raised a bolter and fired a volley. The shells impacted Jackie's shadow armor, bursting with micro-explosions that rocked his stance. He retaliated, summoning a spear of darkness and hurling it with force. It struck Brother Sergeant Tycho's pauldron and dissipated, leaving a smear of unnatural darkness on the ceramite. Tycho hissed through clenched teeth.
His anger flared, his blood singing the song of battle.
He charged, power fist ready to hammer the entity. Jackie braced. As Tycho swung, Jackie ducked and let his armor flow into the floor, sinking him momentarily into the metal. He popped up behind Tycho, driving a tendril into the Marine's leg joint. It slipped through seals and bit flesh. Tycho grunted, staggering. Brother Apothecary Marek stepped in, chainsword revving. He swung at the shadow tendril. Jackie withdrew it just in time, the teeth sparking off the metal floor. A burst of motion behind Jackie alerted him to Brother Chaplain Severus. The chaplain's Crozius crackled toward his head. Jackie raised both arms. The Crozius struck his armored forearms and lightning crawled over his skin. Pain lanced through him, but the darkness absorbed much of the energy, hissing like an oil fire. Jackie pushed forward, his strength augmented by the entity. The chaplain stumbled backward. For a brief moment their eyes met through visors, one filled with zealous fervor, the other a swirling void of pale green.
Brother Captain Lucian assessed.
Their bolters had limited effect. Close combat risked casualties. Yet the entity had not made lethal strikes when he could have. Lucian raised a hand, signaling for a pause. Under his breath, his voice came calm and firm. "State your allegiance, stranger." Jackie panted, the darkness swirling around him like a cloak. In his mind he weighed his options. He could not speak of his world. They would not understand. He could tell them of the cult's ritual. That might align their goals. He took a breath. Without the use of quotation marks, his words flowed into the narrative as thought turned to speech. He told them he sought the heart of the ritual causing the warp disturbances. He told them he would destroy it. He told them he did not wish to harm them but would defend himself. Lucian processed the information. Brother Tech Marine, Gaius's sensor readings confirmed the entity's path mirrored the pattern of shrine destruction they had discovered. Brother Chaplain Severus's helmet vox crackled as he consulted the codex. There were precedents for cooperation with unknowns if they furthered the Emperor's will. Lucian made a decision. The kill team would shadow this being, monitor it, and if possible, allow it to do the Emperor's work. If it turned, they would annihilate it. He lowered his bolter slightly. "Very well," he conveyed. "We shall see if your path aligns with ours." The tension eased but did not dissipate. Jackie nodded, understanding the conditional trust. Together, though not together, they advanced. Jackie moved ahead, guided by the darkness, Marines following at a distance. Bolter muzzles remained ready. The narrative maintained its solemn tone. Through this uneasy alliance, the story progressed toward the inevitable confrontation with the cult. The section ended on a fragile truce, passing its delicate balance to the next. The path to the ritual heart led through regions of the underhive where the very air seemed to hum with malignant energy. Jackie felt the darkness quiver with anticipation. The Marines behind him adjusted their helm filters, the reek of iron and death permeating even through seals. They stepped over bones and waded through pools of congealed blood. Rusted catwalks groaned under their combined weight. In this labyrinth, sound carried strangely. Distant screams arrived attenuated as if underwater. Jackie's eyes adjusted to deeper gloom. With every level they descended, the pulsing aura of the ritual grew stronger. The darkness whispered that they were near the center of a web, a place where lines of power converged. Jackie shivered, not from fear, but from the sheer magnitude of the energies. He had faced ancient gods and primal demons. This felt akin to those experiences. When they entered a cavernous chamber, it was like stepping into a different realm.
Massive vats rose from the floor, each filled with blood bubbling without heat.
Pipes snaked between them like veins. Above, chains dangled empty or with macabre decorations of skulls. The walls were covered in sigils etched with knives and fingers. At the center, a raised platform held a circle inscribed in gore, runes pulsing with sickly light. Cultists circled it, chanting, their eyes rolled back. Atop the platform stood Lord Vakra, his towering presence anchoring the chaos. Beside him, Sorcerer Malice intoned phrases that clawed at the ears. The warp tear above the circle rippled, showing glimpses of a crimson sky and shapes moving beyond. Jackie stopped just within the chamber entrance. The Death Watch fanned out behind, hugging cover. Brother Tech Marine Gaius transmitted data to the orbiting cruiser. Brother Chaplain Severus mouthed litanies to shield their souls. The darkness surged within Jackie, hungry. It recognized the ritual as a threat and an opportunity. Here was a well of power to be devoured. Jackie's heart pounded. Memories of his first confrontation with the Brotherhood of the Darkness in his home universe surfaced. Then he had nearly been consumed by his own heritage. He would not let that happen here. He stepped forward. Tendrils uncoiled, darklings peeked from his shoulders, eyes glinting. Vakra's gaze snapped to the intruder. His face split in a grin, exposing teeth filed to points. Under his breath, his voice thundered as he welcomed the stranger, promising to add his skull to the offering. Marlis hissed, recognizing the silhouette from his visions. Jackie's answer was action. He launched twin spears of shadow at the outer ring of cultists. They skewered two zealots, breaking the human chain and causing their hands to slacken. The chant faltered. Vakra roared and leapt from the platform, chain axe revving. He barreled toward Jackie with speed that belied his mass. Jackie braced, summoning a shield. The chain axe bit into darkness, spraying sparks. Jackie grunted, the impact reverberating up his arms. He retaliated with a surge of tendrils that wrapped around Vakra's weapon and tried to yank it free. Vakra's grip did not falter. He pushed forward, driving Jackie back. Around them, Deathwatch bolters boomed, targeting cultists and demon spawn that emerged from the shadows. Malus redirected warp energies to shield the circle, chanting faster. Jackie broke free from Vakra's charge and slid aside, his boots skidding on blood-slick floor. He flicked a glance toward the platform, calculating. If he could disrupt the sorcerer's focus, the ritual might collapse. Vakra swung again, forcing Jackie to block. A darkling leapt and bit the champion's throat, teeth scraping metal, then was swatted aside. Jackie ducked and rolled, weaving through the giant's strikes. He saw an opening and sent a blade of darkness into Vakra's exposed side. It pierced flesh, eliciting a roar. Blood sprayed, boiling where it touched the floor.
Vakra lashed out with his free hand, catching Jackie by the torso and lifting him effortlessly.
Pressure crushed ribs. Jackie gasped. The darkness coiled, then exploded outward, knocking Vakra back. Both combatants stumbled apart. The battle raged on multiple fronts. The Deathwatch fought with grim efficiency, chain swords roaring and bolters barking. Mutated cultists surged and died under their fire. The sorcerer's chants intensified, the warp tear widening, glimpses of horns and wings manifesting beyond. Jackie knew time was short. He tightened his jaw. He would have to end this quickly or watch this world succumb to the flood. He readied himself, the section closing on this precipice, handing the tension to the next. Vakra swung his chain axe in a wide arc, the humming teeth spitting gore and sparks. Jackie ducked under it and let the darkness flow into his limbs. He darted forward, sliding between the champion's legs and slashing upward as he passed. Tendrils cut through Vakra's inner thigh, severing muscles. The giant stumbled, bellowing. Jackie popped up behind him and drove a fist wreathed in shadow into the small of Vakra's back. The blow sent the champion forward into a vat of blood. Vakra rolled, brass armor scraping against metal. He came up drenched, crimson cascading down his body. The blood sizzled where it touched Jackie's shadow, releasing vapors. The darkness growled, hungry. Jackie stole a second to glance at the ritual. Malice's shield flickered. The Death Watch's suppressing fire had taken out several cultists, but new fanatics rushed to replace them, knives drawn. The tear had grown, crimson lightning arcing from its edges. He felt the pressure building, like the moment before a dam bursts. Vakra recovered with astonishing speed. He lunged, chain axe raised high. Jackie raised his arms to block. The axe crashed down. Jackie's knees buckled. The floor cracked. Pain radiated up his bones. Behind Vakra, Brother Captain Lucian seized the opportunity. He charged, power sword ignited, and plunged it into Vakra's exposed back. The champion roared, twisting, trying to reach the marine. Jackie joined, driving tendrils into the wound. The darkness poured into Vakra, burning like acid. The champion convulsed, muscles spasming. He turned, backhanding Lucian with a blow that sent the Astartes stumbling. Jackie clung to Vakra's armor, his tendrils burrowing deeper. He could feel the blood god's favor within this flesh, a hot, hateful force resisting him. He pushed harder, channeling his will. Vakra's roar became a gurgle as blood filled his throat. With a final wrench, Jackie tore. The champion's spine severed.
Vakra collapsed, chain axe clattering from nerveless fingers.
Jackie jumped clear as the giant fell. The darkness drank greedily, drawing in the escaping life force. Jackie fought to control it. The temptation to surrender to the power, to let it flood him with ecstasy, was immense. He gritted his teeth and forced it back. He could not afford to lose himself here. He turned his attention to Malice. The sorcerer's hood had fallen back, revealing eyes glowing with warp fire. He screamed words that melted ears, channeling everything into the ritual. Jackie sprinted toward the platform. Malice raised a hand, sending a bolt of crimson lightning.
It struck Jackie and agony exploded through him.
The darkness screamed, foreign energy burrowing into its essence. Jackie stumbled but continued forward, step by agonizing step. He reached the base of the platform and leapt. Malice swung his staff, the crystal at its top blazing. Jackie caught it with a tendril and yanked, pulling the sorcerer off balance. He slammed into the ritual circle, disrupting the runes. The light faltered. The tear shimmered. Malus shrieked and tried to regain his incantation. Jackie drove his fist into Malus's chest. Bone shattered. He ripped, tearing out the sorcerer's heart in a spray of black blood. Malus convulsed and sagged. The warp energies around him spasmed. Without the sorcerer's focus, the ritual stuttered. Jackie turned to the tear. It still writhed, still threatened to stabilize. He understood he had one chance. He summoned the darkest spear he had ever forged. All the hatred, fear, and love he had felt condensed into a single lance. He hurled it into the heart of the tear. It struck with a sound that vibrated his teeth. Green-black light erupted, swallowing the crimson. The tear resisted, then shrank as if in pain. The voices beyond wailed. Jackie poured his will into the spear, pushing. The darkness responded, its essence stretching across the gulf, closing the gap. Inch by inch the tier closed until only a thin line remained. With a final push, it snapped shut. Silence followed, broken only by the ragged breathing of those still alive. The vats calmed, the runes faded, the ritual had failed. Jackie dropped to his knees, exhausted. The Marines lowered their weapons. Brother Captain Lucian walked forward, helmet retracted to reveal scarred features. He looked at the fallen champion, the dead sorcerer, the closed rift, and then at Jackie. He nodded once, a rare gesture of respect. Jackie nodded back, unsmiling. The darkness purred, sated for now. The threat was ended, yet the war around them continued. Above, Inquisitor Morda's orders echoed. Jackie knew he would not be allowed to leave unchallenged. The section closed on this moment of grim victory, handing the weight into the next. The chamber still reverberated with the aftermath of the ritual's collapse. Blood dripped from ruptured pipes. The acrid smell of ozone lingered where warp lightning had struck. Jackie rose, his muscles aching, armor cracked in places where the champion's blows had landed. Brother Captain Lucian stood with his squad arrayed behind him. Their weapons were still powered, sensors still active. They had fought alongside. This shadow-wrapped stranger, but loyalty to the Inquisition, demanded they bring him in. Jackie sensed their hesitation. The darkness whispered strategies for escape, ways to slip into the shadows and vanish. Jackie considered them, but dismissed them for now. He owed these warriors something. They had chosen not to shoot him in the back while he closed the portal. He met Lucian's gaze, a connection across worlds and beliefs. Lucian spoke without raising his voice, his words part of the narrative flow. He thanked the entity for its actions while reminding him that his presence violated Imperial law. He explained that the Inquisition would want to examine him to determine if he posed further threat. Jackie listened, his mind running through possible outcomes. He envisioned being strapped to a slab, interrogated, dissected. He saw the darkness unleashed in a lab, devouring everything. He could not allow that. The darkness stirred, ready to fight. Under his breath, Jackie told Lucian that he would not submit to imprisonment. He said he respected their mission but could not trust their masters. He spoke of his own war, an endless crusade against things that lurked beyond light. Lucian's jaw clenched. He understood duty. He also recognized valor. He raised his bolter half a degree. Brother Chaplain Severus tightened his grip on the Crozius. The air charged, the decision crystallizing. At that moment, reality rippled. A portal opened on the far side of the chamber, not red like the warp tier, but deep emerald, swirling with shadows that seemed familiar. Jackie's head snapped toward it. He felt something tug at his soul. The darkness thrummed. This was a door home, or at least to another battle in his endless path. It was his chance to escape interrogation, to avoid becoming a pawn in another hierarchy. Brother Tech Marine Gaius's sensors beeped in alarm. Unidentified portal formation, unknown energy pattern. Brother Captain Lucian made a choice. He raised his bolter to aim at Jackie. Surrender now came the order through the narrative, not a shout, but a wait. Jackie met the Marine's gaze one last time. Without quotes, his thoughts reached them. He could not. He stepped toward the emerald portal. Bolters barked. Mass reactive shells streaked toward him. Jackie dove. The first shells impacted the floor where he had been, punching holes through metal. He rolled, his armor sending up sparks. He stretched out his hand, fingers brushing the portal's edge. A bolt of pain shot up his arm as stray rounds clipped his shoulder, shredding shadow flesh. The darkness screamed with him, both outraged and exhilarated. He plunged through the swirling emerald. For an instant, he felt himself stretching as if pulled like taffy. He glimpsed worlds, ruined cities, lush forests, endless deserts. Then he snapped back into himself. Behind him, the bolt around struck the portal's trailing edge, causing ripples. The last thing he heard from that world was Brother Chaplain Severus shouting a prayer. Then the portal closed. Jackie collapsed on a cold, wet surface. He coughed, tasting salt. The air smelled of the ocean, not promethium. He looked up and saw a sky streaked with purple and gold. He was not home, not yet. The darkness coiled, ready to resume its hunt. Back in the hive, Brother Captain Lucian lowered his weapon. The entity had escaped. Inquisitor Mauder would not be pleased. Lucian issued orders to his squad. They would report the events and await further directives. He felt a strange hollowness. In another life, in another universe, perhaps he and the Shadow Warrior might have fought side by side more. Duty pulled him away. The section ended on this parting, its emotional weight lingering, passing into the next. In the aftermath of the incursion, Inquisitor Mauder stood before his hollow display, watching replayed footage of the battle. The ritual chamber's carnage played on loop. He saw Vacra's fall, Malus's death, the collapse of the tear. He saw the Death Watch fighting alongside the entity, and then he saw the entity step through the emerald rift. Mauder's jaw tightened, lines creasing his weathered face. He listened to Brother Captain Lucian's Vox report. He noted every detail, the entity's apparent motivation, its refusal to surrender, the unknown portal. He turned to his acolytes, who waited with apprehension. He gave orders for increased surveillance across all hive levels. He commanded the destruction of all remaining cult shrines. He requested a psyker chorus to scour for residual warp taint. He did not yet call for exterminatus. The world had been saved through a combination of imperial might and an unknown factor. He would not waste it. Acolyte Jurgen, a man who had spent his life crunching data on heretical movements, posed a question without phrasing it as such. Could this entity be a tool to be used against chaos? Inquisitor Mauder considered. He had seen the creature close a warp rift with its own power. He had seen it slay a champion of Khorne. He had seen it spare imperial lives. Yet he had also seen it defy the Emperor's law, vanish through alien means, and wield powers that could not be sanctioned. Mauder spoke, his voice low, merging with the room's hum. He said that even a weapon can turn, that the Emperor alone is pure. He said they would record everything, place it in the most secure vaults and forget it until needed. He said vigilance demanded memory. On Terra, months later, the High Lords of Terra would read a sanitized version of his report. They would note the entity's existence, file it under phenomena, and proceed with running an empire of 1,000,000 worlds. To them, it would be a footnote. To Mauder, it became a story he would tell novices as a cautionary tale. In his private chamber, away from the eyes of his subordinates, Mauder knelt before a shrine to the Emperor. He whispered a prayer without quotes, acknowledging that faith must sometimes be bolstered by unexpected allies. He pondered the nature of the universe. He wondered if even the Emperor might find allies beyond his reach. The darkness, wherever it resided, did not care about human bureaucracy. It moved Jackie through worlds, connecting him to a chain of cosmic events. In the warp, voices screamed his name. In other dimensions, nightmares dreamed of him. For Jackie, the war never ended. It only shifted location. The section closed by zooming out from this individual world to the galaxy at large. letting the emotional residue drift like dust motes into the next. The portal had deposited Jackie on a rooftop overlooking a sprawling metropolis. Skyscrapers of glass and neon rose like frozen fireworks. The air tasted electric, buzzing with the hum of arcane energies and the chatter of a million voices. Holographic signs flickered in languages Jackie did not recognize. He stood, the darkness flowing around him in ripples, adjusting to the new environment. Rain fell, washing blood from his armor. In the street below, hover vehicles glided past, their headlights throwing long beams that shattered in the droplets. This was not his New York, but it held echoes, crime, vice, lights that hid darkness. He sensed no warp corruption, at least not like the hive worlds. But there was something else, a different flavor of dread. The darkness whispered that this place had its own monsters. Jackie took a step, the rooftop gravel crunching. He heard sirens, different pitch but same urgency.
He scanned for threats.
On a billboard, an advertisement for cybernetic implants promised transcendence. Beneath it, a giant screen showed a politician's face rallying for unity. He realized he had not left war behind. He had simply exchanged one theater for another. A flicker in the alley caught his eye. A group of men and women in sleek armor moved with purpose, weapons slung. Their uniforms bore the emblem of a corporate security force. They dragged a young woman with cybernetic limbs that sparked from recent damage. She resisted weakly. Jackie watched as they shoved her against a wall. Without questions, he knew what came next. He dropped from the rooftop, landing with feline grace in the alley's mouth. The security team turned, surprised. Jackie's eyes glowed faintly in the neon wash. He stepped forward, hands empty. He let his presence speak. The leader, a broad-shouldered man with augmented eyes, snarled something about jurisdiction. Jackie's reply came as tendrils snapped forth, disarming the guards, coiling around barrels and yanking them away. The cybernetic woman gasped, then ducked as a stray shot ricocheted. Jackie moved through them like smoke and knives. He broke bones, then stepped back. He did not kill. He left them moaning, weapons scattered. The woman looked at him, fear and gratitude warring.
Under his breath, Jackie told her to run.
She hesitated, then fled. The darkness watched, amused. It rarely saw him spare those who held guns. It asked him why. He thought of the Marines who let him close a portal, and replied within himself that there were shades of grey, even in night. He rose back to the rooftops, blending into shadow. This new city pulsed with life and secrets. He would need to learn its rules quickly. He sensed no direct link to the Warhammer universe here, but he understood that his presence shifted balances wherever he went. Behind him, far away, on the hive world, rumors spread of a shadow demon who fought for humanity. In this city, new whispers would soon take root. He continued moving, the section ending with rain washing the last of the hive's blood from his cloak, handing the narrative thread to the next location. Elsewhere in the galaxy, a Mechanicus Forge world built cathedrals to machines. Inside one such towering structure, Engenseer Dominus Serax contemplated a new data stream. It was encrypted with inquisitorial codes, yet he possessed authorization. The feed showed the entity of shadow, the closing of the warp tier, the escape through an emerald portal. Xerax's augmented mind processed probabilities. He had studied ancient Terran myths of darkness and light. He had data referencing pre-imperial cults. He filed new correlations. He requested additional access, but the Ordo Hereticus denied him. He filed the denial, but he did not forget. In the flickering incense-lit darkness of the forge, he turned to his attendant servitors and murmured prayers to the Omnissiah. The narrative touched him only briefly to underscore how far the ripple of Jackie's actions traveled. In an underworld bar on a hive city, gangers told tales of a shadow warrior. On a shrine world, a priest saw a demon in his dreams that matched Jackie's form. The universe expanded, showing that each action created ripples. It also reinforced the mythic tone. One man or one entity could influence events across star systems. This section stayed shorter, functioning as connective tissue. It passed the baton like a soft, emotional handoff to the next. On the bridge between realities, Jackie drifted. The emerald portal had closed behind him, but it had not delivered him home. Instead, he found himself in a realm between, where fragments of worlds floated like shattered glass in a dark sea. He stood on a piece of cracked pavement with a stop sign jutting from it, surrounded by void. In the distance, he saw islands of other landscapes, a forest suspended upside down, a chunk of desert with a lonely cactus, a slice of industrial complex twisted at an impossible angle. The air, or whatever passed for air here, was cold and thin. The darkness felt calm in this place, as if it recognized a part of itself. Jackie sensed movement. Out of the void emerged shapes, not of warp demons, but of beings that resembled his own darklings, though taller and more elegant, composed of shadow and faint starlight. They regarded him with eyes like galaxies. One stepped closer, its form shifting between human and serpentine.
In a voice like wind through reeds, it spoke directly into his mind.
It asked why he carried a piece of primordial darkness that did not belong to his birth world. Jackie answered in thoughts, telling the story of his inheritance, of Tony Estacado's curse passed down, of how he had used it to survive. The entity listened. It revealed that it belonged to a race older than time, that the darkness he wielded was a shard of their essence, stolen eons ago by beings who wanted to play God. It said it had been searching for its lost pieces. Jackie felt a surge of anger. He was no thief. The entity's tone softened.
It said it did not blame him.
It asked if he would return the shard when his journey ended. Jackie hesitated. The darkness within bristled, possessive. It had grown with him, shaping and shaped by him. It was part of his identity. Giving it up felt like cutting out his heart. But he also sensed the pain of this entity, its longing for wholeness. He made no promise. He said he would consider it. The entity accepted his answer for now. It gestured. A path of floating stones appeared, leading to another portal. It told Jackie that if he took this path, he would continue his journey, perhaps come closer to home. It told him the path would challenge him. Jackie nodded. He stepped onto the first stone. The void stirred. Behind him, the entity and its kin drifted away, returning to their endless search. The section ended with Jackie moving forward into uncertainty, the emotional tone one of contemplation and resolve, handing the narrative to the next challenge. The floating stones carried Jackie into a labyrinth formed of shattered memories. Walls rose from the void, not of brick, but of scenes from his past. He walked down a corridor and saw his childhood bedroom, then turned a corner into an alley where he had made his first kill for the mob. Each turn confronted him with choices he had made. The darkness whispered, trying to lure him to relive his violence and savor it. Jackie resisted, focusing on his purpose. He did not want to be trapped in nostalgia or regret. A figure appeared ahead, Jenny Romano, the love he had lost. Her eyes were warm, her smile heartbreaking. She reached toward him. Jackie took a step, then froze. He knew this was a construct, yet his heart ached. The darkness urged him to ignore her, to move on. It did not understand love. Jackie stepped closer anyway. He whispered, without quotes, an apology for failing to protect her. He told her he would never forget. He felt the construct's fingers pass through him like mist. He moved on, tears he did not wipe away, mixing with the void's cold air. The labyrinth tested him with guilt, desire, rage. At one turn, his father stood, the man who had cursed him with this gift. He hurled accusations. Jackie confronted him, telling him he had forged his own path, that he would not be defined by another's sins. The apparition dissolved. At the labyrinth's center, he faced a mirror. He saw himself as a king of shadows, the darkness manifested in full, a crown of thorns made of night, a throne of tendrils. The mirror whispered what he could become if he surrendered fully, a god of a dark universe, feared and worshipped. Jackie touched the mirror. The image leaned toward him, its eyes his, but colder. Jackie shook his head. Power without conscience meant nothing. He shattered the mirror with a punch. The labyrinth walls collapsed, revealing the next portal. As Jackie stepped through, he felt lighter, as if leaving behind some of his burdens. The darkness murmured approval, though it did not understand his choices. This section served as internal development, reinforcing Jackie's emotional arc.
It ended on his determination not to lose himself, handing forward resilience to the next confrontation. The next world smelled of burning libraries and books that screamed as they burned.
Jackie found himself in a city where knowledge was both revered and despised. Tall towers of stacked tomes rose like Gothic trees, their pages fluttering like leaves. Runes carved into the cobblestones glowed faintly. Hooded figures darted through alleys, clutching scrolls and blades. Voices whispered, merging into a cacophony that filled Jackie's head. The darkness recoiled, overwhelmed by the noise. It had always existed in silence and secrets. Here, secrets were weaponized. Jackie had stumbled into a war between two factions, archivists who believed in preserving knowledge and pyromancers who burned books to control narratives. He did not know their names or causes, only that they spilled blood over ink. As he moved, he saw a young archivist cornered by pyromancers, wielding flaming swords. He intervened, his tendrils snuffing flames, his fists shattering swords. The archivist thanked him with a whispered vow, pressing a book into his hands. It was bound in human skin. Jackie recoiled. The archivist insisted it held information about the shards of darkness. The pyromancers regrouped, igniting the street. Jackie retreated into shadows, pulling the archivist along. They reached a hidden chamber lined with books sealed in glass. The archivist spoke of ancient beings, of cosmic shards scattered across realities, of wars fought in whispers and shadow. Jackie listened, gleaning that he was not the only bearer of a shard, that others existed with powers similar yet different. The book he held vibrated. He opened it and saw an illustration of a creature akin to his darklings, set against a backdrop of stars. Notes, scrawled in margins, spoke of a convergence, a time when the shards would call to each other, reshaping multiversal boundaries. Jackie closed the book. The archivist looked at him with awe and fear. Jackie told him to hide. He stepped back into the street, where pyromancers had piled books for burning. Jackie swept his arms, darkness extinguishing flames. He did not take sides. He merely refused to let knowledge be destroyed or hoarded. He moved on, leaving the war of whispers behind. The section ended with him clutching the skin-bound book, the weight of new responsibilities settling on his shoulders. Passing into the next part. From the whispering city, Jackie emerged into a land stripped by storms. Endless plains of cracked earth stretched under black clouds.
Lightning danced constantly, illuminating the skeletons of titanic beasts half buried in dust.
The air thrummed with static and with hymns. Columns of pilgrims trudged through the wasteland, chanting praises to a god of storms. They dragged icons carved from stone and carried relics of wood so old they crumbled in the wind. Jackie saw their faces, gaunt yet filled with fervor. He sensed no chaos here, only desperate faith. The darkness quieted, curious. The pilgrims spoke of reaching the storm spire, where they believed their god would descend in a bolt of lightning to bless them. Jackie looked to the horizon. He saw a tower of cloud where lightning concentrated, striking the same spot repeatedly. He felt drawn not by worship, but by the power. He walked among the pilgrims. They whispered about the shadow man and gave him space. A child stumbled. Jackie caught her, her small hand gripping his larger one. Her mother murmured thanks. Jackie nodded. The wind picked up.
Dust swirled.
The ground vibrated. A roar like a world machine filled the air. From the clouds descended a being made of storm and light. It coalesced into humanoid shape, towering above the spire. The pilgrims fell to their knees. Jackie stood, feeling the darkness stir. The storm being regarded the crowd. It spoke not in words, but in thunder, promising salvation through sacrifice. A priest stepped forward, offering himself.
Lightning struck, vaporizing him.
The crowd exulted. Jackie frowned. He sensed the being feeding on devotion, growing stronger with each sacrifice. It was not a god, merely a predator of faith. He stepped forward, drawing the being's attention. The storm entity crackled with displeasure. It demanded he kneel. Jackie did not. He drew darkness around him like armor, defying the light. The storm struck, bolts lancing toward him. He raised a tendril, absorbing some of the energy, redirecting it into the ground. The rest slammed into his chest, burning.
He staggered but held his ground.
The pilgrims watched, their songs faltering. Jackie shouted into the wind that devotion should not end in death. His voice merged with thunder, carrying his conviction. The storm being recoiled, unused to resistance. Jackie hurled a spear of shadow into its core. The being howled, lightning flaring. Jackie pressed forward, darkness colliding with storm. The clash sent shockwaves across the plain. Dust devils rose. The pilgrims scattered. Jackie channeled all his pain and rage, all the memories of lost love and battles, into his attack. The storm entity weakened. It flickered. With one final surge, Jackie pierced it. The being exploded into rain and light. The storm dissipated. The air cleared. The pilgrims wept, unsure if they were saved or abandoned. Jackie turned to them. He told them their faith was their own, that no god should demand death. He walked away, lightning still crackling in his muscles. The section conveyed that Jackie was more than a weapon. He was a figure who challenged gods when he perceived injustice. It ended with him alone on the plain, the promise of new challenges ahead, handing over the moral weight to the next part. Elsewhere, across realities, beings of power convened. They did not sit at a table nor meet in any physical space. They were thoughts, potentials, archetypes. They were gods of darkness, of light, of balance. Among them was the entity Jackie had met between worlds. Another presence pulsed with heat, perhaps a representation of a chaos god, its voice dripping with sarcasm. A colder presence radiated order. They discussed the movement of the shard-bearer, the one called Jackie Estacado. The first spoke of his strength and compassion, of how he closed a tear in a reality not his own. The heated presence scoffed, calling him a pawn of chance. The cold presence murmured that he might upset balances. The shadow entity argued that Jackie was unique because he bore a shard, yet retained his humanity. They debated whether to intervene, to reclaim the shard, to manipulate him. Ultimately, they decided to observe. Jackie's choices would determine his role in the coming convergence. The scene returned to Jackie briefly, showing him unaware of cosmic eyes upon him. He traversed a desert, moved through forests, never stopping. The narrative reminded the reader that larger forces moved behind the scenes, that mythic stories were shaped by both individual will and cosmic design. It ended with a sense of looming convergence, passing this weight to the next section. After countless journeys, Jackie stepped through a portal and smelled promethium and burning again. He emerged back into the Warhammer universe, though not the hive he had left. This was a battlefield under open sky. Titans strode in the distance, their guns like thunder. Guardsmen ran across trenches, laser guns blazing.
Orcs roared, their green skins bright amid brown mud.
Above, aircraft screamed. Jackie blinked, adjusting. The darkness flared, eager. He had not expected to return so soon, but convergence demanded it. He moved through foxholes, shadows hiding him from both sides. He watched an Imperial tank explode, a shell from an orc gun hitting its magazine. The blast flattened soldiers. He saw Commissar execute a man for cowardice, then die to shrapnel. The randomness of war pressed on him. He ducked under barbed wire and climbed a ruined building. From this perch, he saw a new portal open on the field, crimson this time. Demons poured forth, hounds of brass and flesh. The orcs cheered, seeing more foes. The guardsman screamed, recognizing chaos. Jackie knew what he had to do. He sprinted toward the portal, darkness streaming behind him. He cut through demons, his tendrils slicing limbs and heads. He shielded mortals when he could, but he did not align himself with any side. He focused on the tier. He reached it and saw the walk beyond. He prepared to close it as before. Yet, as he raised his hands, a shadow blocked his path. It was Brother Captain Lucian, armor-scratched, bolter-smoking. He had been redeployed to this front. He recognized Jackie instantly. He raised his bolter, not to shoot, but to cover him. Lucian spoke in the narrative flow, saying the Inquisition still sought him, but the battlefield took precedence. Jackie nodded. They fought side by side, closing the portal together.
Orcs tried to interfere, but Lucian's bolter cut them down.
Jackie hurled his spear of darkness. They sealed the tear. The war continued around them, but a small portion of chaos had been denied. Lucian looked at Jackie. Jackie looked back. They said nothing. In their silence, respect passed. Then they turned away to their respective duties, one to report to his superiors, the other to slip back into shadows. The section ended with war raging, but a moment of cooperation, shining like a star in gloom, handing the emotional resonance into the final part. The multiverse is vast, and paths cross and diverge like threads in a tapestry. Jackie Estacado walked these paths, sometimes with allies, sometimes alone. He carried with him a shard of primordial darkness and a heart that refused to surrender to it. He had stood in the bowels of a hive world, facing cultists of a blood god. He had argued with inquisitors through actions rather than words. He had walked between worlds, met ancient shadow beings, fought storm gods, and learned of a coming convergence. He had returned to war and found common cause with those sworn to a distant emperor. Through it all, he remained himself, a man forged by violence and tempered by love, guided by a moral compass that pointed neither to absolute law nor chaos. He did not seek glory. He sought to right the wrongs he encountered according to his own sense of justice. As he stepped through another portal, the darkness whispered possibilities. It whispered of power, of surrender, of ruling. Jackie whispered back that power meant nothing if not used wisely. He would decide when to release or return the shard. Until then, he and the darkness were partners, sometimes adversaries locked in symbiosis. Somewhere, across realities, other shard-bearers felt a tug. The convergence drew near. Storms gathered.
Old gods stirred.
In a chamber on Terra, a new inquisitor read an old report and wondered about the Shadow Man. In a forge, a tech priest adjusted his prayers. In a hive under smog, children told stories of a demon who saved them. In a labyrinth between worlds, shadow beings watched. Jackie walked on, his silhouette etched against countless horizons. No quotation marks framed his thoughts or the words he shared with those he met. His narrative remained continuous, cinematic, solemn. As the final section ended, a soft, emotional handoff carried the weight of his journey into the infinite beyond, where new stories awaited to be told. If you hunger for more tales of impossible encounters in the dark millennium, smash that subscribe button. And the Emperor protects those who support the channel.